Hi everyone. Today we are going to be talking about the activity for week 3, and this is all about what is called the CRAAP detector. And so when we're talking about this, we are starting to really think about where information is coming from and is it appropriate for what we need to use it for? And is it appropriate information and accurate information? So is it useful, good information? Or is it crap, right? So let's go ahead and get started. For this activity, this is the first video that you're going to be watching as I provide you some details about what each letter means from this acronym CRAAP. And there's also a fun YouTube video to watch as well. So that's provided that we would like you to watch too. And then you're going to kind of take a mini test activity and send it to your TAs afterwards. So let's start thinking about each letter of this CRAAP detector. First thing we want to think about is reliable sources. And I see that I'm just going to move myself down for a second. Reliable sources. And when we think about reliable sources, we oftentimes are searching the internet, we're reading something, we see something that's interesting. It's pretty easy to search on the internet. You just go to Google or whatever your device is and explore an option, and you can kind of find an article after an article after an article or a video about some topic that you might be just found and are curious about. The question is the information that you're reading or hearing in that video accurate? And what we need to be worried about is if it's not accurate, what are you doing with the information? Do you think it's accurate and it's not really? And how does that impact the information that you learn for our society and also for your own learning purposes? So we want to keep that in mind. So CRAAP stands for currency. Is it current and up to date? Relevance, authority, accuracy, and lastly, purpose or point of view. So we're going to go through each one of these letters and concepts to think about how that impacts if you are going to use the resource and if it's a reliable resource or if it's not good at all. Let's think about that currency one. Currency is the first one that we want to keep in mind. And these are some questions. We also have a PDF for you to review. And these questions are things that you want to kind of ask yourself when you're reading over a resource that you have found. Look for some information within the resource to help you answer these questions. So they're not ones that you specifically need to answer in an assignment, but they're ones that you kind of you want to have in the back of your mind that you're looking at whenever you find a resource. So currency is getting at this idea that the information that you find, you don't want it to be old news. You don't want it to be outdated information. You want it to be current, relevant to the time that we're living in now in our society. So is the information and references recent? I tend to say that recent is within the last 10 years. You definitely don't want information older than me. And you probably don't want information that's older than you because a lot of things have changed within the period of time that you've been alive. So I usually take the 10-year mark. Current topic, or is it old news? Is it something that has been talked about 4 years ago and really has nothing related to our society now? Or is it something that is up to date? It's with the technology that we're using, and it's relevant. Also, any updates or revised lists. Some resources, if there is an updated version, they will make a comment about that. They will show in a section of the article or resource, they will say updated, and then they will provide what that updated information is. And can you access all the links as part of that resource that you have? Are there any dead links? If there's dead links to it, that information is not available now, so it's not as up to date as we would want it to be. The R is relevance. How relevant is it to the topic that you're interested in? especially if we're thinking about a writing assignment that you're doing or a research paper that you're working on. Is the information that you found or the source that you found, is it really relevant to the topic that you are exploring? Because if you find something and it's not useful, then it might be something that we don't want to use for the paper. Just because you have it doesn't mean that you need to use it. So, does the information relate to your topic that you are exploring? Is the information important for your needs? Does it link to maybe your argument that you have or your position in the paper that you're writing? Is it incorporating all the different topics that are part of your research paper? Is it easy to read and follow? And this is a trickier one because some resources are really appropriate resources, but they're hard to digest. They're difficult for you, for me, even for a lot of people. Some resources are harder than others. And if it's too difficult, who can you find to help you explore and understand what that article is saying? So, is it easy to read and is it easy to follow? Who is the intended audience? Is it intended for people who have a general understanding of the topic area? Is it created for just the general public, for the general population? Is it created for specialists in the field of the topic? So the level of writing and the level of detail oftentimes is influenced by the intended audience. Is the information at an appropriate level of purpose? And this comes at the idea of how much depth is provided and how much detail within that topic. And that might be important for you depending on how much information you want in that particular topic. How many resources have you checked out? So how many articles have you explored? Have you explored any of the resources or references within that reference that you're actually looking at? Sometimes that's a useful tool, is to see, oh, have I read any of the references within this original resource that I have? And lastly, would you include this in a research paper? Is this something that you believe to be clear facts, evidence-based, and something that you could use to support your main ideas for a research paper? Next, let's look at that first A in the CRAAP detector. Authority. What is the source of the information? Who wrote the resource or the article that you're exploring? Who are the authors? Who are the resources? Is it a program or company that's involved? Do they have any influence in what these results are? For example, a lot of drug companies, well, they want to sell their drug, so they might be writing it in a particular way to influence the reader. We want to make sure that authors are unbiased and sources are unbiased in how they're reporting the information, that they are reporting clear, unbiased information that is informative but not persuasive. Also, could you contact the author or publisher if needed? Many resources should be providing email addresses, even sometimes phone numbers or addresses at this point in time. And if you're looking at a research article that we will explore in this class, you should be able to find the author's names, with the institute that they work at, and also their email addresses if you have any questions. And they actually love to receive questions about articles and research that they do. What does the URL reveal about the information? So normally in a website you see .com, that's a common one. You also see .gov, which is a government-based website. We see a lot of these for public policy initiatives or legal documents or legal rules and regulations. We see edu for education-based resources or URL, so it's coming from a university-based system. And lastly, org, and this URL is revealing that it's coming from an organization. So you want to keep those in mind when you're using a particular resource. This will help to identify the authority. This will also possibly help to identify the accuracy and the reliability of the information, and possibly the position, who's writing it, why they're writing it, and for what reasons. The second A is accuracy. There's a lot of questions in this one to kind of keep in mind. Accuracy is the information reliable, truthful, and correct? This is kind of when we hear this word fake news, right? So we want to make sure that whenever we're reading over the information from a source, is it reliable? Is it something that is coming from an evidence-based content? And is it correct? Is it worded correctly? Is it explained in the way that the original researchers or authors intended it to be explained? Where does the information come from? Is it coming from an empirical article? Is it coming from a person off the street that's giving their opinion? Is it coming from an organization that has a stake in whatever the topic is? Different questions to keep in mind from that view. Is the information supported by evidence? I mentioned this above in that first line, but is there research to back this up? And one way to identify that if the information is supported by research or evidence is that you'll notice that there's a reference. There's a list of where they got that information from. So it might not be an original evidence-based information, but they might be supporting it from evidence, which is great to see. That's what we really would like to look at. Has the information been reviewed or fact-checked? Have other people evaluated this? If it's coming from an empirical journal article, from an academic standpoint, they have been all peer-reviewed. So yes, it would be in that way. If it's coming from a blog post, no, most likely not. It hasn't been reviewed or fact-checked, so we want to be careful about those types of resources. Can you verify the information to another source or compare to self? So how does this information that you're reading about from this resource compare to another resource that you found or other information or just your common knowledge about the topic? Is the language unbiased and free of emotion? When we're reading information and facts, we want it to be more or less straightforward. We don't want it to be very persuasive or opinionated. We want it to be straight line, focusing on the actual information and the facts. Are there spelling or grammar errors? We are more likely to take something as accurate and clear whenever there's spelling, there's correct spelling and no grammar issues. That's just a professional formatting. Keep in mind that anyone can publish anything online. So our job as a reader and a reviewer is to identify the accuracy. So anybody can post something, but it's you, the individual who's reading, whose job it is to evaluate the accuracy of that information. And we identify the accuracy from where is this information coming from, the evidence that it's supporting, and then if it's not there, we should really be asking those questions. Those are good questions to ask and to critically think about that information. So that's a big part of learning in college. Last part of this CRAAP detector is the purpose or point of view. What is the purpose of the information? What is it trying to tell you about? Why are we looking at this information? Does it inform us about information? Is it trying to teach us about a particular topic? Is it trying to sell us on a particular product or drug or intervention? Is it trying to entertain us and make it humorous to us? Or are they trying to persuade us in a particular direction? All questions that we want to ask ourselves and evaluate the resource for that information. Does the author make intentions or purpose clear? Do the authors come right to the beginning and say, this is what I'm trying to focus on. This is what the point is of this reference. Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? We can usually identify that clearly, but we do need to keep in mind what type of information this is. Is the point of view up here objective and impartial? Is it unbiased? Again, we're coming into that topic. Is it open to just focusing on factual information? Are there political, ideological, cultural, religious, institutional, or personal bias? When we're reading something, if you see a bias, we want to eliminate that as much as possible. And then what do we do next? We have this CRAAP detector. We're going to find our resources. We're going to evaluate them against these topics that we just talked about. Have you used any of these tips before? Is this something that you're already doing, which is excellent if you're already doing it? Test out these tips, see what happens. And then also ask us questions. We love questions. So contact us if you need any help with anything. Bye. See you later.